This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, live from the Erie Cafe in Chicago. And tonight we're going to be at Paisan's Pizza, and doing a book signing and a riff. That should be fun. And today is Veterans Day. It used to be called Armistice Day. At 11:11 a.m. on November 11th, World War I ended, or at least it was signed. And this is morphed into Veterans Day. So a tip of the hat or a salute or whatever is appropriate to all of our veterans here in the audience as well as all around the country. Today is also the 44th. My wife Louise and my 44th wedding anniversary. We got married at 11/11 on 11/11. So, Louise, I love you. Happy anniversary. We have a great panel here, and Tom Ryan with the Firefighters was late putting out a fire. All right.
Well, no, union business. Let's put it that way.
Okay, all right, great. And Tom, I understand we in the last hour we were talking about pension reform, and we went through this at some considerable length. So I don't want to revisit the whole thing, but I understand that the firefighters' pension is one of the ones that's in the most trouble here.
I would say that we are the worst at this point. We are sitting somewhere around 20%, depending on who you're talking to, but. In dire straits, and something had to be done. There's another blip in the market. We are in serious trouble. Right. And the firefighters and paramedics, they show up to work every day. Every time you dial 911, they show up, and it's time that they have to have their retirements covered, because many of my brothers and sisters, they suffer from maladies, illnesses, injuries from their service, and their retirements in many cases are not pretty. So to have this specter of a possible of their pension possibly being severely diminished or going away altogether cannot happen.
Now, are firefighters eligible for Social Security?
They are not.
They are
and
not.
So this is it. And I said this in a previous program, but I think people have to know this. When I started 31 years ago, when I walked into the academy, I couldn't have raised my hand and said on the first day, and said, you know what, I'm a very shrewd investor. I don't want the city to take 9 1/8 of my salary every paycheck because I want to invest it myself. I had no choice. This was your retirement.
Right.
This is it. Okay. And they took it from you. It's not that you had an election, you had a choice. This was your retirement. And now 31 years later, they want to walk away or they want to change the way things are done. You can't do that. That's not supposed to happen in this country.
They being the state government.
The state government, the city government, whoever you want to talk about, you can't, in a country such as this, that is not supposed to happen.
Yeah. And I understand, my dad worked in a tool and die shop for 40 years. And I remember when, as a little kid, playing with the asbestos rolls. It looked like corrugated cardboard that the steel, this precision steel shipped in. I mean, these guys worked in clouds of asbestos, and half of my dad's friends I watched die of mesothelioma, as did my father. And I understand that with firefighters, it's a similar situation. You walk into a burning house and all these flame retardant chemicals that are on the carpets and in the furniture, and in a lot of buildings there's old asbestos that a lot of your firefighters are dying of cancer and mesothelioma, and this is the only thing that they have to fall back on in retirement.
That is correct. It's interesting you bring that up, because a few years back we teamed up with NIOSH to do
what's NIOSH?
NIOSH is the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health.
Okay.
And they were doing a 3-city study of going back 50 years looking at cancer rates of firefighters. And, there was considerable risk in doing something like this, because what if the data doesn't shake out the way you think it's going to shake out? We all kind of felt and know that exactly what you described in these chemicals and these asbestos and everything else in the air when we're fighting a fire, we felt it had a negative effect on our health, but we didn't have the data to back it up. So NIOSH went back and did a statistical analysis of ourselves, Philadelphia and San Francisco, and it played out exactly as we thought. But the one illness that was never even really considered was mesothelioma, and we found out that we're almost 3 times as likely to have to contract that or have that as a cause of death. Yeah. So there are so many things you see a firefighter or paramedic killed in the line of duty. It's a horrible thing, but another horrible thing is to slowly waste away,
right.
And that's what is happening to a lot of our people. I sit on the National Fallen Firefighters Cancer Awareness Board, and we just had a meeting out in Washington, D.C. a couple weeks ago. Cancer rates in firefighters are up 35%. Wow. And they're getting worse, and it's getting worse, and it's because of what's burning. I would encourage everyone in this audience to look at an HBO documentary that was put out. You can get it on demand right now. It's called Toxic Hot Seat, and it deals exactly with the flame retardants that you were talking about.
Is this the story of how the tobacco industry jump-started the flame retardant industry so that they could avoid cigarettes that automatically went out?
Absolutely correct. And the thing is that the one state that passed it was California.
Yeah.
And so what it meant is people that were manufacturing furniture or bedding or whatever else would have to make a separate batch just for California. So they figured instead of doing that, we'll just throw flame retardants in everything, even though 49 other states didn't require them because California did. They just started making them. Everybody has these things, and these things they are finding. There's a reason why they call the title of the documentary Toxic Hot Seat, because that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Incredibly toxic.
Amazing.
And this is stuff that's not just affecting us. This is affecting your babies. And the way they found out about this is they found elevated levels of these toxins in the breast milk of San Francisco's female firefighters.
Whoa.
So it's fascinating, and I would encourage everyone to watch this because it will open your eyes to things you would have never believed.
Yeah, and the people who are putting their lives on the lines now have their pension fund funded at what, 20%?
20%. That, could be 21. Well,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it's.
This is something that the legislature has to address. Do I have that right?
Absolutely. And I listen. You know what? Nobody wants their taxes raised. I understand that. Believe me. But we found no other avenue, no other choice,
right.
Because we are in such dire straits that this has to be done.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and this is an obligation. I mean, people take a pension in lieu of pay.
That's
typically.
Correct. That is correct.
So a pension is a promise. I wanted to get into Governor Rauner's attack on collective bargaining. This is something, not living in Illinois, that I'm not. Oh, everybody's booing if you can't hear. Not living in Illinois, this is not on the top of my mind. But apparently for folks living in Illinois, it's a huge deal. Tom, you want to speak to this?
Sure. And I think
Villanova?
Before, Tom, thank you. You spoke about at the break, we've got a roadmap that Scott Walker has created in Wisconsin that we can see exactly what happens with this attack in collective bargaining. It's un-American to not have collective bargaining and everything we work for. And just a little sidebar here. Today is Veterans Day, as we've spoken about many times, and we can never speak about it enough. But Governor Rauner has stopped $700 million in construction and jobs. One of the biggest things 3 months ago that he did on the north side of Chicago, there's a homeless veterans facility that's being built with state money. 3 months ago, he stopped construction of that homeless veterans home.
Oh, my God.
All of our contractors got letters, cease and desist any further construction on a homeless veterans home. How low can you go? That's what we're talking about in this argument, in this discussion about Governor Rauner. But there's $700 million in construction that's been stopped. These jobs, like the Homeless Veterans Center that is there, after a period of time, these jobs are going to have to either be knocked down, reconstructed, and it's going to cost twice as much money as what it costs now to build them. Yeah. Sorry to get off track there.
No, it's great. It's great. I want to get into the details of his attack on collective bargaining right after the break. It's 15 minutes past the hour. Thom Hartmann here with you live from the Erie Cafe. Is that right? Yeah, the Erie Cafe. Brought to you by WCPT and the Regional Council of Carpenters, Waterproofers, Allied Workers, and Machinists.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And we'll be back with more right after this. And welcome back. It's 34 minutes past the hour. Thom Hartmann here with you live from the Erie Cafe in Chicago. And tonight I'll be at Paisan's Pizza doing a book signing. If you're listening in Chicago, you've got to get tickets over at chicagosprogressivetalk.com for that. And we are here with an illustrious panel of labor leaders from Illinois. Vito Marchese.
Well, I'm Larry.
You're Larry.
Vito and I switched out.
Okay. So you're Larry Walsh, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. State Representative Larry Walsh. Tom Ryan is with us, representing the Chicago Firefighters. Jeff Eppenstein. Eppenstein. Thank you. Business Rep, United Union of Roofers, Waterproofers, and Allied Local Workers. Bob Reiter, Secretary Treasurer of the Chicago Federation of Labor. Sam Cicinelli, the business manager with Mechanics Local 701, and Tom Villanova, the president of the Chicago Cook County Building Trades, for those of you who are just tuning in and didn't hear the introductions an hour ago. We were talking about Governor Rauner's war on labor, basically, war on organized labor. And Bob, you were mentioning right to work. And let's define terms here for a moment. My understanding of all this is that right to work was a phrase that was invented back in the 30s or early 40s as a pushback against the Wagner Act, against the National Labor Relations Act, which legalized basically unions in 1935, I think it was, maybe it was 33, and this whole right to work idea was that you shouldn't be forced to pay union dues even though the union is representing you. And so what happens is the law requires the union to represent you legally. If you're a union member, if you're working in a union shop, the union has to pay for lawyers, they have to pay for representatives, they do all this bargaining and all these other things. And the whole right to work thing, which was enabled in 1947 with the Taft-Hartley law, which was vetoed, I think, 3 times by Harry Truman, but they overrode his veto every time. And what that allowed was individual states to say, okay, we're going to allow people to opt out of paying their union dues. And this so-called free rider thing, and this destroys unions. And the reason for this, in large part, was not that the Republican Party hates workers, although I think you could build a strong case for that, but it was that one of the principal sources of funding and of boots on the ground for elections for the Democratic Party historically was unions. And so if we can defund the unions, we can defund the Democratic Party. And this is in part what Bill Clinton and the DLC and all this was looking at in the early 90s was the unions were losing funding, and so some in the Democratic Party said, okay, we've got to figure out somebody else to get in bed with, and it turned out to be the banksters, which has not worked out all that well. So the question that I have. Chicago is not a right to work. I call it right to work for less. It's not a right to work for less state. And so how you were I don't believe, Bob, you were mentioning that Governor Rauner has right to work for less zones. How do you do that? How is that even legal? Does anybody know the answer to this question?
It's not legal, and they're trying this in Kentucky right now. What Governor Rauner is doing is a variation on Kentucky. So in Kentucky, you had local governments saying that we're a right to work county, right? Mm-hmm. And it got challenged. The Attorney General, I believe, in Kentucky said no, this isn't right. So he took what was going on in Kentucky, said, you know what we need? We can still do it. We can do it if we do it through having a state law that says that counties and cities can opt out of it. And we still don't think that state law could do that still violate it's preempted federally by federal law by the National Labor Relations Act. But what he wanted to do is build this grassroots campaign amongst municipalities saying that we want local control. He's like, you guys need it. And there'll be more money from the state for you if you can accomplish this. And it's been widely rejected, if even considered, by local municipalities. But he can't do it. He can't do it
Governor
himself.
Rauner.
He can't do it himself through executive order. He can't do it by having the municipalities do it on their own, and he can't do it through this grassroots campaign. But he's telling everyone that this is what's gonna solve whatever economic crisis we have. And right to work doesn't do that. What right to work does is it drives down wages, right? How can you have a consumer-based economy if you don't have individuals in that economy have the ability to be consumers, right? And that's why Illinois has been a great place, because it's not a right to work state. People say, "Oh, we have all these problems." People everywhere have problems, right? New Jersey, Chris Christie's saying, "Come and do business in New Jersey because it's cheaper." Turns out it's not, right? Scott Walker, come do business in Wisconsin. Pence over in Indiana, come do business in Indiana. You start looking at what their effective corporate tax rate is. You take a look at what they offer to folks. Those states don't offer anything that gives them a competitive advantage over Illinois. Illinois is a great state to live in. I assume that the people that are here, with us today that live here in the state of Illinois, they think Illinois is a great state to live in. I believe that, and I believe we have an obligation and a duty to protect the working class here in Illinois, because we represent all that's right, what's been right historically with the Midwest.
Right. Tom, you wanted to hop in on this.
To piggyback on what Bob was saying too, Chicago is the number one relocation city for corporations right now in the United States. So if people are going out in droves and leaving Illinois, well, it doesn't prove out that way. One of the other things when we talk about the turnaround agenda, what the governor did was go out to certain municipalities, ones that he had the numbers in the election. I mean, this is a real easy roadmap to follow. Ones that he had the numbers in during his election, went to those municipalities, offered the turnaround agenda at a local level. This is what Bob was talking about. 91% of the population of the state of Illinois has rejected the turnaround agenda. So when you read all of his nonsense about we've got this big, vast group that wants the turnaround agenda, 91% of the population of the state of Illinois said thumbs down, no, we don't want it.
So, Sam.
Thanks, Tom. I just want to add to what Tom and Bob is saying. Obviously, Governor Rooner is trying the divide and conquer method to attack unions, working families, saying it's going to be more profitable to work in the state of Illinois by becoming a right to work state. It's not going to happen. He's blaming unions on the potential that taxes may get increased to fund the pensions. He's blaming unions for the pensions. The turnaround agenda, piggybacking off of what Tom just said, 91% has been turned down. These are union working men and women that would show up to the turnaround agenda meetings, as well as non-union. So I see the non-union men and women going there because they see the need to retain union density in this state. They understand that if they're a non-union electrician or a carpenter or a non-union mechanic, their wages are predicated on what our ability is to negotiate on behalf of our members. They don't just, their wage scale doesn't just fall out of the sky.
Yeah, in fact, I remember my dad telling me when I was a kid that for every union job at a particular pay scale, there's a non-union job at the exact same pay scale because the unions set the floor. Correct. And so it's like even if you're not a union member, the unions are helping you. Yeah, Bob. Or Jeff, excuse me.
Jeff Eppenstein with the Roofers. So Sam's exactly right. The divide and conquer, that's what the governor has attempted to do. And a couple examples of that. The Southland mayors and managers, this is a coalition of both Republican and Democrat village and city mayors and the managers of these townships. They have a coalition together, and these are some of the communities that are making their collective bargaining agreements. They're paying their workers. They're making their obligations to their pensions, and their budgets are sound. Well, the governor came in and tried to enforce his turnaround agenda on these communities, and they essentially told them, no, we're not going to accept it. At which point, to do the divide and conquer part, he told them, well, then you're not going to get your share of the state tax revenue that is owed to you under the statutes, and tries to put pressure on him in that manner. And I commend a lot of good mayors there, like in Palos Hills, Jerry Bennett, and Evergreen Park, James Sexton, and Chicago Ridge, Chuck Tokar. These guys stood up to him, and he backed off of that fight, and he kind of turned the direction to another fight. One other thing that just came in the news the other day. Now again, the state's broke. We have to cancel this program. It's not my fault. It's this side's fault. It's that side's fault. I'm trying to get these things done. So he says, we're not gonna light the Capitol up this year for Christmas. We're not gonna put the Christmas lights around the Capitol. So So the Grinch came out and he tried to steal Christmas. Okay, and I commend the AFL-CIO and three of the downstate unions, the smaller local carpenters, operating engineers, and laborers. They stepped up and they said, you know what? If Cheapskates doesn't want to pay and put the lights on in the Capitol, we'll pay for it. And we took the $7,300 out of our general funds, and they're paying, and they're going to light that Capitol.
Yeah, bravo. How widely known is that, Jeff?
You know, like we were talking earlier this morning, Tom, progressives, our message, it doesn't get out there enough.
Yeah.
You know, the Foxes are controlling, the Fox News organizations of the world, they're controlling the media. So how do you get it out there? Well, you got to turn to social media. You got to turn to some of the better progressives that are out there and the messages that they're doing. You know, I listen to Robert Reich all the time, a former labor secretary under Clinton. You know, he's spot on. I look at different things like the AFL-CIO's Facebook page. I get my information. I get it from the Chicago Federation's Facebook page. So you got to find the information because it is hidden. They don't want to hear our message because our message is the correct message.
Yeah, I can see Rauner taking credit for the lights. Oh, this one, it's amazing. It's amazing. We are live from the Erie Cafe in Chicago. The event put together by WCPT and the Regional Council of Carpenters, United Union of Roofers, Waterproofers, and Allied Workers, and Machinists Local. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Back with more in just a moment. It is 10 minutes before the hour here in Chicago. We're at the Erie Cafe, and on Veterans Day. It's a beautiful day, and welcome back. Tom Villanova, president of the Chicago Cook County Building Trades. You wanted to make a comment, and then I want to pick up questions from the audience.
Just real quickly, Larry Walsh is here with us. State Representative Larry Walsh is here with us, and we try and talk to our members about running for elected office because there's no better person to be in an elected office than one of our members. They get it. There's no learning curve. They've heard about it over the kitchen table every day. So they know what we're talking about. But I will say, we never get enough time to thank the good legislators, the good elected officials that are sticking up for us in Springfield, because without them, we would have nothing right now. Rauner would have been able to run over us.
Yeah, without them, you would have Wisconsin. That's pretty grim stuff. Okay, question from the audience.
Hey, Tom. Vito Marchese again, Local
Hello,
126,
Vito.
District 8 Machinist. I just want to make a couple comments that Brother Jeff brought up. Talk about voters. We were lucky during the presidential election to get 50% out, but I think for the governor's election, what did we get? 25% out. It seems to me that...
Really? That was your voter turnout, was 25%?
It's pathetic, unless it's a presidential year.
Yeah.
But, people are more distracted, and our own members are guilty of it, and we try to get everyone out. But people are more worried about what the guy out on the football field is going to do on Sunday than their own wallet, and that's a problem, and we need to change that. And I understand we're trying to do it at a local level, but I'd also like to make a comment. Chicago Federation of Labor does a great job. Bridget Early is the political director, and I was able to get out to a couple of the turnaround meetings that some of the local communities had, and one of the communities west of O'Hare Airport that gets all its revenue leaching from O'Hare Airport, which is, probably 95% unionized workforce. But this little community that leaches off of O'Hare Airport voted for the turnaround agenda. We went there, we fought for it, but it was 8-0, whatever the vote was. Even a retired school teacher on the board collecting a pension voted for this. It was a watered down version, but it still was basically the turnaround agenda. But here's the point I want to make. Can you imagine on the Friday afternoon, 2 p.m. before Memorial Day, this mayor magically got appointed to the tollway board for $35,000 a year? Can you imagine that?
So it's payoff, basically.
I'm not saying that, but It was magic.
Yeah. A lot of magic happens when you got a billionaire as a governor. Yeah, Bob.
Yeah,
Bob Reiter.
So Vito, I believe, was talking about Elk Grove Village, and a few years ago, when I still worked at the local union, I represented the Public Works Department. My union represented the members who worked there for Elk Grove Village, and I got asked to come to a meeting by the mayor. His name's Craig Johnson. Of Elk Grove Village, and asked me to come in. I met with him and his lawyer. He was in the meeting for literally 30 seconds, and he asked me, he's like, Bob, we're having trouble here in Elk Grove Village, and this is the post 2008. We don't have the money. We have a collective bargaining agreement with your workers here, and we need some relief. And I said, well, Mr. Mayor, let's look at what the numbers are, and if there's an opportunity to do something, we're in the middle of our contract, we'll do it. And we met with their folks, and they were having a legitimate issue with their revenue and their budget. And I asked if we took a wage freeze, would they guarantee us no layoffs? And we came to an agreement. And I went to the members. I had 30 to 50 people in the room. I said, the village is in trouble, and this is the time where you guys have wage increases coming to you, but this might be an opportunity where we chip in and we forego those raises, and they've guaranteed us no layoffs because we're going to do the right thing. And there was other unions also involved with Elk Grove Village, and we did the right thing. The members voted unanimously to take a wage freeze in order to help the village out with its budget. And here we are in 2015, the same guy who came to me hat in hand and said, can you chip in and help? He runs a village that has a huge industrial base. He's now saying, you know what, we'll take a look at this turnaround agenda and these right to work zones. When he needed us, when he needed the labor movement was there for him. Where is he now that the labor movement needs something from him? Where's the teamwork there? We were team players. Craig Johnson in Elk Grove Village, not team players.
Yeah. So the billionaire Governor Rauner, Republican Governor Rauner's agenda, basically, he calls it a turnaround agenda, which is such good branding. I mean, it's almost as good as right to work. But it really what it is it's an anti-labor agenda. Is that the essence of the whole thing? Yeah, amazing. Okay, questions from the audience.
Yeah, I'm Paul Sako. Hey, Paul. I'm interested in knowing how Bernie Sanders can deal with this issue around being a democratic socialist, because I go out petitioning and people are saying, I won't sign. This is just to get him on the ballot, not to vote for him.
Right.
And they're saying he's a communist, etc.
Right.
So what can he do?
Well, I can't speak for Bernie, and I don't know. I've heard that he's going to be giving a talk of some kind about explaining democratic socialism. But basically, what I would say if I were in your position is, do you like Social Security? Social Security is a democratic socialist program. Do you like Medicare? Medicare is a democratic socialist program. Do you like union representation? That's a democratic socialist. I mean, this is all these and by the way, when Social Security was passed, when Medicare was passed, I mean, Ronald Reagan, in fact, made a recording when Medicare was passed saying that this was socialism. Right? I mean, it's not like, but it is an interesting one. Other questions, Matt? Yeah.
Good afternoon. I just wanted to say hi to Thom Hartmann's biggest fan. Here in Chicago, the headlines have been the unfortunate shootings and the like. I grew up in that community, an African-American man who went from Inglewood to become an Ivy League educated lawyer. If we want to see more headlines and the negative, we'll continue this path of being anti-union and anti-coalition. If you want to, what's the difference? I grew up in a community where my fathers and my uncles, my grandfathers, we had union jobs in the steel mills. They're closed. Yep. Union jobs as electricians, they're closed. Yep. And our presence.
We got to take a break. Brilliant. Thank you.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.